Great, so we're doing really well when it comes to our adding a new pizza form. The only thing that we are missing really now from the form itself is checkboxes to say if something's vegan or whether it's vegetarian. Our pizza is vegan or vegetarian. Now, there's a subtle difference between checkboxes and inputs. In that, in order to get the value of our input, we can use this event.target.value. The problem is with checkboxes, they don't include this event.target.value. They have event.target.checked. Let me just double check that. Yeah, event.target.checked. And this is a Boolean of true or false. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can approach this. And we're going to go through both, and we can sort of talk about the pros and the cons of each of them now. But first of all, let's go ahead and actually just add the checkboxes to our form. So I'm going to do this right down at the bottom, just below our heat rating. So this is our heat rating field. So I need to just add it below this div here. So div of, do you know what, this is going to get tedious. I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to change it. So to add a checkbox, I'm just going to see, right, we want to do it below this div here. So we're going to have a div of class name field. And then the way that we do checkboxes is a little bit, this is only a Bulma thing rather than a HTML thing or a React thing. But we have to kind of wrap our checkbox in the label, but that's no worries. So we'll just make a label tag here, give the label a class name of checkbox. And then inside the label, we will then put our input, but this can be self-closing, so I might as well do that. And this then needs a type of checkbox, and I think that's it really. Yeah, let's just see. Oh, we actually should add a label. So just after our input, but still inside the label tags, I'm going to put, this one is vegetarian. So it should come up with kind of vegetarian and then a tick box. Let's just double check that that's the case. Okay, yeah, we've got tick box for vegetarian there. Brilliant. You can probably style this a little bit better, but that's how it is for now. Great. So inside this checkbox, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name of is vegetarian. And then we'll also get it to run our handle change when we get a change. So on change, and we want it to run the handle change function. Great. So we'll have it run our handle change here. So let's go ahead and see what actually gets console logged out when we do event.target.value by ticking that tick box. So I'm in the console and we get on and on. Oh, that's a little bit weird. We don't actually get the value of our tick box when we try and get the event.target.value. Well, that's because we're actually on our checkboxes, we don't have a value. We instead have this checked attribute that we can kind of get hold of. So a nice, easy, simple way of doing that might be just to, inside this handle change function, just say, well, if it's a checkbox, put this new value key on our event.target and set that equal to whatever the checked is. Okay, let's give that a go. Let's see what happens when we do that. So right at the top of our handle change function, what we can say is if the event.target.type, because don't forget we've got a we've got a type, because don't forget we've got on some of our inputs we've got a type. So we've got type checkbox here, we've got type number here. So if the event.target.type is equal to checkbox, and this is all lowercase because that's what's going to be on that event.target.type, well, we're going to add a value to our event.target and we'll set that to whatever the checked is. So we'll say event.target.value and set that equal to event.target.checked. Oh, fantastic. Let's see what happens when we do this, because we're going to go ahead and log out that event.target.value here. So let's just give this a refresh, and hey, true and false, and true and false, and true and false, true and false. Wonderful. So let's just take a look and make sure that we're actually updating our state as we expect here. So down here, after we set our form data, I'm actually going to console.log our form data. So now, as we know, this will be kind of delayed by one action because it's asynchronous and we can't kind of get it immediately. We can't access our state immediately. But I just want to show you something. So I'm just going to refresh this again. If I hit this on and off a few times, and we just open up our state object, you'll see that we've got is vegetarian is false, and then it's true. Brilliant. But it's a string of false and a string of true. Now, this actually doesn't matter, because on our back end, we're dealing with the fact that if a string of false comes in, we do actually deal with that being false. It's just one of the ways that I help you out kind of with the APIs, just in case you make a little bit of a mistake. But what if we don't want that to happen? Well, the first thing that you might think of doing is just saying, oh, well, we can just set it to a Boolean, right? We can just, inside here, we can, we could say event.target.value equals a Boolean of event.target.checked. Brilliant. It must be coming in as a string. So, we'll set that to a Boolean, and that will convert the word of true or the word of false, the string of true or the string of false, into an actual true or false value. So let's try that now. Give that a refresh. Click this a few times. Still coming in as a string. Why is that? Well, it's one of those things that when we have an attribute on an element, it will always be a string. This making it a string is kind of happening behind the scenes. We don't get any control over that. Okay, so one of the ways that we could deal with that is we could say, if it's a checkbox here, we could kind of move this operation down. So, after we've set it here, we could say, if it's a checkbox, actually go back again and change that to a Boolean. That seems a little bit, a little bit much, a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to remove that Boolean operation from there and save this. So this is one way of doing it, basically. And this might be absolutely fine. And in this instance, it is absolutely fine. However, I do just want to show you a slightly different way that we could approach this if we so wanted to. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, I'm going to scroll down, sorry, and I'm just going to copy this down, Option-Shift down to make a new one. Oh, what have I done there? Oh, I forgot to copy the lower div of this. So Option-Shift down, and we're going to say name of is vegan and change that to vegan. But instead, let's write a new function to deal with our checkboxes. So I'm going to say handle checkbox. I think that kind of makes sense. We've not written this yet, so that's why it's gone blue rather than yellow. But if we just scroll up and we make this function, then we can make a function handle checkbox. So what we're basically going to do is everything that we're doing in here, but instead of using the event target value, we're going to just use the event target checked. So in here, we will need our event. So we'll say const current data, and we will spread out our form data. Oh, I've just used 2 dots there rather than 3. We need the 3 dots. And then we will say our current data at the property of event.target spelled T-A-R-G-E-T. Can't spell today apparently. Event.target.name. We will set this to our event.target.checked. Great. Let's now set the form data. So set form data to our current data. Let's just go ahead and console.log out our form data again, just so that we can be 100% sure that it's working as we expect. Oh, handle checkbox is not defined. Oh, maybe I just need to refresh it. I think maybe handle checkbox is not defined. I think I've probably just... Ah, I see. I've made a typo here. Can you see it? I think I've put a capital B here. Okay, it's gone yellow to bright yellow to tell me that it's all okay. Let's just triple check down here. Handle check box. Yep, that works. Okay, these things happen. Even the best of us make typos. So going to save that and then just refresh to clear my console and stuff like that. So if I hit, oh, again, I'm errors all over the place. Oh, I forgot to put console.log in. I'm just having one of those days today, it seems. So save this now, just refresh, and then hit vegan a couple of times. And now you'll see that we actually get that as a proper Boolean value on our state, on our form data. Okay, so let's just make sure that we're adding those into our state. So we'll need an is vegetarian. And we'll set this as default to false. And we'll need an is vegan. And again, we'll set this as default to false. So these will get set in here. What we do now need to do is set the checked value of our boxes to whatever's in state again, so that we could maybe put these as default in afterwards. You know, if we're editing, we're pre-populating and stuff like that. So down in our checkboxes, well, we can give it the attribute, or use the attribute of checked. And we'll set this equal to our form data dot is vegetarian. And down here on the vegan one, we will say checked equals our form data dot is vegan. Great. So let's just go ahead and test that these are definitely showing up as we expect. So if we hit vegetarian, oh, that's a little bit odd. It's come true, but it's saying it received the string of true for the Boolean attribute checked. Although this works, it will not work as expected if you pass the string false. Did you mean checked equals true? Well, we didn't mean checked equals true, but it's saying, oh, you've got a bit of a problem with your falsing here, the fact that it's getting the string of false. Do we get the same issue on the vegan one? No, we don't. Why is that? Well, it's because, remember we wrote two separate functions to be, this is handled within the regular change handler, so it's going to be a string. And this has its own function where we're actually using the Boolean value. So there's a couple of ways that we can deal with this. We could either make this is vegetarian box, kind of just use that checkbox handler. I don't want to do that simply because I want you to have two different examples of how to do this. In reality, you would keep them both the same. Sort of if you're in a production app, you would not have differences, in the way that you do this. But I want you to see the difference between doing it. So this is a bit of a hacky way of doing it, I would say, but it works quite well. What we need to do is we need to kind of query whether this has a string of false, and if it is, convert that to the Boolean value of false. So I think probably the best way of doing this is to do a strict equality of if this is the string of false, and then we'll use a ternary just to say set this to false. Otherwise, set it to true. Again, it's a little bit hacky, but what I want to kind of demonstrate to you is that it's sort of possible to change the data types of stuff depending on what's kind of required as part of your for whatever you're actually doing in your app. So if I just save that and then come back over here, refresh, and we do this, you can see that this is now working. Now, why wasn't that working before? It's because a string with anything in it has the Boolean value of true. So the string of false, believe it or not, has a value of true. So that's why it wasn't changing. But now it is because we're setting it to the Boolean value of true. It can get a bit confusing. So if you're confused, maybe just do it this way. Do it the vegan way. Do it the way with a separate handle checkbox where you can keep that kind of Boolean value correct.